What if I told you that depression, one of the most talked about mental health conditions today, was once believed to be caused by black bile pooling inside the human body? What if I told you that for thousands of years, people who felt empty, hopeless, and emotionally exhausted were not treated as ill, but as cursed, sinful, or weak? Before we go any further, subscribe to this channel right now. If you've ever wondered why depression has been misunderstood for centuries, why people were punished instead of helped, and why it took so long for science to take mental health seriously, this video will completely change how you see it. Stay till the end. This is not motivation. This is history they never taught us. Depression was not discovered in a laboratory. It was not named by one person, and there was never a first patient. Because depression has always existed, long before we had language, medicine, or compassion for it. Today, we are uncovering the hidden backstory of depression, where the word came from, how medicine tried and failed to understand it, and how centuries of misunderstanding shaped how we still see mental health today. Long before science and psychology, humans noticed something was wrong. Ancient texts from Mesopotamia, dating back over 5,000 years, describe people who experienced persistent sadness, withdrawal from others, fear, and a loss of meaning in life. But there was no medical explanation, so suffering was explained the only way people knew how: through the supernatural. Mental distress was believed to be caused by angry gods, evil spirits, or divine punishment. Treatment was spiritual, not medical. Rituals, prayers, and exorcisms replaced care. In ancient Egypt, emotional distress was sometimes blamed on physical displacement within the body, including the belief that organs could wander and disrupt the mind. There was no diagnosis, no treatment, only fear and misunderstanding. Around 400 BCE, a Greek physician challenged everything humanity believed about illness. His name was Hippocrates. He rejected the idea that mental suffering came from gods or demons and proposed something revolutionary. Diseases of the mind have natural causes. Hippocrates believed the body was governed by four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. An excess of black bile, he said, caused a condition called melancholia. Melancholia included deep sadness, fear, insomnia, withdrawal, and hopelessness. For the first time in history, emotional suffering was seen as a medical condition, not a curse. The word melancholia comes from Greek, melon meaning black, chole meaning bile. For centuries, melancholia was the accepted explanation for what we now recognize as depression. But here is an important truth. There was no first person ever diagnosed. Why? Because diagnosis did not exist as we know it today. People were observed, described, and categorized, but never formally diagnosed. Philosophers, poets, and scholars were often labeled melancholic. Even Aristotle suggested that melancholy was linked to intelligence and creativity. But ordinary people, they were ignored, or worse, punished. As Europe entered the Middle Ages, medical understanding collapsed. Mental suffering was no longer illness, it became moral failure. Sadness meant weakness, withdrawal meant spiritual corruption, hopelessness meant sin. People showing depressive symptoms were isolated, shamed, or subjected to religious punishment. If this part of the story surprised you, pause for a moment and tell me in the comments. For centuries, people suffered not because help didn't exist, but because understanding didn't. Like this video so it reaches more people, and subscribe to the channel if you believe mental health conversations deserve truth, not judgment. This era delayed mental health progress by hundreds of years. By the 17th century, a new word began to appear in medical language: depression. It comes from the Latin deprimere, meaning to press down. Unlike melancholia, which was tied to bodily fluids, depression described a state of emotional heaviness. By the 18th and 19th centuries, depression gradually replaced melancholia in medical texts. Mental suffering was no longer poetic or spiritual, it was becoming clinical. In the late 1800s, psychiatrists like Emil Kraepelin began observing patterns in mental illness. Depression was classified under mood disorders. For the first time, doctors tracked symptom patterns, duration, and recurrence. Still, there were no brain scans or medications, only observation. But something important had changed. Depression was finally recognized as real. The 1900s transformed mental health understanding. Psychotherapy emerged, brain chemistry was studied, antidepressants were developed, depression became linked to biology, environment, trauma, and genetics. In 1952, the first Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, DSM, officially defined depression. For the first time in history, depression had a name, criteria, and treatment pathways. So, who was the first person diagnosed with depression? The answer is simple and uncomfortable. There wasn't one. Depression wasn't discovered, it was recognized. Humans have always existed. We just kept changing the story we told about it. Depression was never new. What was missing was understanding. If this video changed how you see mental health, share it, because history should never silence human pain. Subscribe to this channel if you believe mental health conversations deserve truth, not judgment. And tell me in the comments, what part of this history shocked you the most? This channel exists to replace silence with understanding.